Hello and welcome to the Keep Your Cool Mama podcast, where we are encouraging the everyday mom to pursue her dreams and discover her own greatness. Hey cool mamas, this is Sheilah and you are listening to episode 5 of the Keep Your Cool Mama podcast. How are you guys doing? This podcast is coming to you a little later than I planned for it to. I had actually recorded the episode yesterday on Monday, which was actually later than my scheduled time that I normally record it. And I was very disappointed, beyond disappointed. I was in my feelings. I was in my feelings yesterday, y'all, and I did not want to re-record. But thank God for my sister and my friend Danielle and my husband for encouraging me and letting me know that the next one will be better. So I'm going to go for it. And I just pray that God will just work through my attitude so that I can, bring this good news and encouragement to you guys. So let's get into it. If you haven't figured it out already, this podcast is about digging deep beyond the surface. Becoming the woman God created you to be goes beyond listening to podcasts like this, reading self-help books, and going to all the good self-development conferences that we don't ever want to miss. Transforming into that woman requires work. It requires work. It goes beyond showing up for those other things and things like that. What we have to do is take all that information that was given to us and put it into action. I myself have listened to the podcast and continue to. I continue to read the books. I've gone to the conferences. I've also learned that true change really started showing up in my life when I did the work, the hard work, the uncomfortable work. Now, today's episode is going to be about how to actually go beyond being motivated and inspired and starting on the road to true wholeness and to where God wants us to be. And I believe that starts specifically with being self-aware. So we're going to discuss self-awareness today. Now, let me start by saying the road to self-awareness is never ending. Because as human beings, we're forever changing and growing, right? Sometimes we're changing without us even realizing it. And growing without us even realizing it. But when we're self-aware, we notice that stuff. Now, I believe as moms, we have to remain consistent at being self-aware. And I say that because the years go by so quickly, as we are intensely focused on creating a caring and loving family life. Now, of course, we should definitely be focused on being loving mothers. Don't get me wrong. However, many of us get so lost in the mommy role that we forget how important individuality is. We think that we're selfish. We think that is wrong if we put time into knowing ourselves, and I don't think we necessarily call it knowing ourselves, but just giving ourselves the attention that we deserve. Sometimes we consider it to be wrong. Not all of us, but some of us, and I've experienced mommy guilt myself, but I know how important it is for us as moms to never forget who we are as an individual and to continue working on ourselves as individuals. Because honestly, it helps our relationships, especially our motherhood, to be self-aware. Now, if someone says to you, I just have a quick question for you that I want you to think about as we talk. So tell me about yourself. You've heard this question before, I'm sure, right? That question used to make me feel uncomfortable, like when you go to the job interviews and things like that. Like, well, I don't know. What do you want me to tell you? And I would feel like that because I wasn't very sure about myself, you know? Now, can you answer that question? Could you talk about yourself and who you are without including your role as a mother? Now, if you can, kudos to you, mama. Kudos to you. And I'm currently giving you a virtual high five because that's awesome. And we celebrate you for sure. I think that's awesome when a woman who is a mother and who has other roles in their lives, taking care of others, knows who they are and what they want, and they still work towards that. I think that is amazing. But if you wouldn't be able to answer that question or answer that request, I should say, no worries, because I've been there. I understand. And as I've gone on this journey of self discovery and specifically being more self aware over the past 3 or 4 years, I've learned how beneficial self awareness has been to my own personal journey to wholeness. So today I wanted to discuss specifically around the topic of self awareness. First, how do you recognize? I'm sorry, what is self awareness? First of all, we need to cover that so that we're clear on what it is. Secondly, how do you recognize that you need to become more self aware and you're not as self aware as you thought? And lastly, I want to just give you guys a few different ways to become more self aware than you already are if you need a little help in that area. Now, according to the article titled, "What is Self-Awareness and How Do I Get It?" Authored by Cheeky Davis, PhD, on psychologytoday.com. Quote, self-awareness involves monitoring our inner worlds, thoughts, emotions, and beliefs. It is important because it's a major mechanism influencing personal development, end quote. Now, without being self-aware, even when we use all the self-help resources in the world, those things just won't help. Without self-awareness, just a lot of things are just not possible for us to be who God has called us to be, and to discover and know, specifically who we are. It's just not possible. Now, you must understand how you think, why you think, what you like, what you dislike, all of these things in order to get anywhere on the road to self-discovery and self-awareness. Now, starting with self-awareness will always be your best bet because it's important that we know ourselves. It sets the tone for how we communicate, how we make decisions, and things of that nature. But the important thing to remember is that in order to truly become self-aware, you absolutely have to be brutally honest with yourself. Now, being brutally honest includes being aware of your emotional triggers and weaknesses which is the hardest part of being self-aware. I know, being brutally honest with myself over the past few years, it's been brutal. It's been brutal. I would ask God, to show me certain things about myself, show me my heart, show me who I am in this relationship, show me who I am in my marriage, and things of that nature. And when He showed me, wow. Now, while it was hurtful to know those things about myself, it was helpful because it helped me to move forward. Because self-awareness gives us the opportunity to come face to face with the things that may be holding us back from evolving when we need to change it. It will definitely keep us from not moving forward. And we don't want that. Now, I want to go over a few ways that you could recognize that you need to just become a little bit more, or a lot more, self-aware. One way to recognize it is if you become defensive. Defensive. Every single time you receive constructive criticism or critical feedback, even when it's given in love to only help you. And when you're not self-aware, everything comes off as an attack. Like, why are you saying that to me? Because you're not so sure about yourself. Or you're just not being honest with yourself about certain things in your life. So you feel attacked. Like, how are you going to tell me about myself? Now, it's important that we allow that type of conversation that's coming towards us as far as the constructive criticism and the critical feedback. It's important that we allow ourselves to listen first and understand first, and to see if it's something that we really need to work on. Now, usually when you do defend, you get very defensive in those situations. This happens if there is an emotional trigger that set this type of response off. There's usually an emotional trigger that you have not dealt with. It's something that somebody might have challenged, something that is an insecurity. Somebody might have challenged something or said something that was close to something that somebody said to you when you were a little girl that made you feel really bad. Some of that stuff has happened to me before. I get that. Now, what we want to do is attempt to stop in the moment when we're working on being more self-aware. We want to stop in the moment and try to dig deeper. Just keep digging and trying to understand why we are offended. Why are you offended by that? Is this connected to something in your past? Is it something that you need to explore a little more so that you won't get offended every time someone says something similar to this? And that's a good starting point too, is thinking, okay, have I gotten offended about something that was similar? Did somebody else say something similar to me before and I got offended about this? Or has my husband or my friend or my relative said to me, every time I say this to you or something like this to you, you get offended and I feel like I can't talk to you about it? That's a clue. That's a red flag. Now, it may take some time to figure this out, but when you are intentional about understanding yourself, the answer will eventually come. I promise you. So don't give up on yourself. Just keep reminding yourself that this self-awareness thing is a journey. Do not give up on yourself. Keep moving because it's a lifelong journey. It's something that we all have to stay focused on and be mindful of. Now, another way that you can tell and recognize that you need to become more self aware is you're afraid to set boundaries. You're afraid to set boundaries with those you love, with those you know, with those you don't know, with those you don't like too much, like you just won't set boundaries. And here's an example. So like when someone says or does something bother you, you say things like, "Oh, it's okay. Don't worry about it." Really? Now, girl, you knew that you were not okay with that. You knew it was not okay with you. And I'm not just talking to you. I'm talking to myself because I've had to come off of that myself. I've had to know this, like, I don't feel good when I don't set boundaries and let people know how they're making me feel. I used to do this a lot because I was afraid to, number one, lose people. I thought, okay, if it was someone close to me, if I say that they didn't make me feel good, then this is an indication to them that I'm pointing out that something is wrong with them, or they're just not going to want to deal with me anymore. So I just wouldn't set the boundary. And number two, I just hate confrontation. And there has to be a deeper reason for that. The way I hate confrontation, there's a deeper reason for that. And that is there's something that I'm not self-aware about that I'm digging deeper for to understand that. As to why I'm not setting those boundaries. But once I started becoming more self-aware and loving myself more, I learned that it's okay. It is totally okay to let people know when you weren't feeling it, you weren't feeling how they treated you, and you can say it in a respectful way. And I always say it's not what you said to me, it's how you said it. I don't believe that it's always what people say to you. Sometimes, not all the times, it's how they said it. Now, if you come across a person who has a problem with you being honest about how you felt, then maybe that doesn't need to be a relationship that you need to be in. And some things are a little bit more complicated than others, as far as relationships. I'm not saying just cut people off right away or anything like that. That's unrealistic. And I think that friendships and relationships are very important in our lives. But if people show a pattern of not caring about how you feel, it's another red flag. And we have to pay attention to that. So maybe this is a relationship that you need to audit and figure out if some things need to change about the relationship, and you need to have a conversation with this person. But the more self-aware you become, the more comfortable you'll be in discussing that. When you are self-aware, though, vulnerability will become easier, even if it means being rejected or disagreed with. Because I think a lot of the times we don't set boundaries because we're afraid to be vulnerable with people, on top of the lack of self-awareness. Now, I've always been scared to hurt people's feelings and have allowed a lot of mistreatment over the years. I found peace in setting boundaries. It has been a huge peacemaker for me. And now it doesn't mean that I don't love you. It just means I love myself too. You got to show yourself some love, because you'll find that when you aren't self aware in a lot of areas of your life, you aren't being loving to yourself in a lot of areas of your life. And the more you pay attention to yourself, the more a lot of these revelations will start to pop up. So not setting boundaries in your personal life can also spill over into your motherhood and how you mother your children, which is not helpful, which I know for me personally, my my motherhood, my boys, my three sons, how I raise them is so very important to me. And I want to be careful with anything and everything that I say to them, because things stick. The way we mother and parent our children sticks. And when we aren't self-aware, and that causes us not to set boundaries, even within parenting, it can have a huge effect on them and how you mother them. And then it can affect their adult life. And that's something that we can get into later. But let's keep it moving with another way that you can determine that you need to be a little more self-aware. When you want to control everything and you're very nitpicky, like to the point where it's about everything, not just some things, but mostly everything. Now, I still haven't completely mastered this. I'm getting better at it, and I try to catch myself when it's happening. But when you want to control every outcome, it's a sign that you don't have control over something else in your life. And if you're deflecting that in other areas of your life where you're being more controlling, then you aren't self-aware about something else. So if there's a connection. I've learned that for me personally, if I could just give you an example as far as myself, when I don't have control of my emotions, I try my best to control everything else. So that my emotions won't be triggered in a negative way. So I'll try to control what I can control so that my emotions won't get all out of whack, because I don't know what will happen to me. So what's a better way to explain this? So if my emotions are, if I know something else is bothering me, and I know, so if something else is going on in my life and I'm becoming affected by it emotionally, I'll try to control everything else because I can't control that one situation and I'm not dealing with that situation. And that happens with friendships. Sometimes it happens with marriage. Sometimes it happens with all types of relationships, work relationships. And if I can't have control over that stuff, and I know my emotions are affected by that, I feel like if I could control something else, that it'll help to keep my emotions intact. But I know that that's not true because I still don't feel good, and something feels unbalanced about it. So I just control what I can control. Now, that example is it's a deflection. It doesn't help. It actually gives me more anxiety when I'm trying to control everything else. I have had to learn how to delegate, how to let people do what they do, how they do it. And Sheilah's way is not the only way. And being okay with that. And that if people don't do it my way, it's all right. life goes on. Things still got done, right? So I'm just becoming more intentional about knowing what's wrong, what's going on, and doing the work to make things better. And that in return helps me to not be so controlling. I hope that made sense. I know it's a bit all over the place, but I had to think that out for you guys because I wanted to make sure that I gave you a pretty good example because I think it's something that a lot of moms deal with. I know it is. Having to control everything is maddening. It doesn't feel good on the inside. I know for me. So lastly, let's go through a few practical ways to become more self-aware. And I'm going to speak to what has specifically helped me in my journey. So first, journaling. Journaling has helped me tremendously. It's a great way to monitor your thoughts and become more self-aware. You keep up with yourself more because we're coming and we're going. We're doing all the things that have to do with our children, that have to do with ourselves, our spouses, our relatives, our friends, and we're not paying attention to what's going on the inside of our minds. It's like a race car race up there. It's too much going on, and when you write things down, it's helpful. Now, I find journaling to be most helpful when I freely write without trying to be perfect. And what I mean by that is writing without paying attention to the incomplete sentences, the imperfect grammar, the terrible punctuation and spelling and things of that nature, because that's not what's important. What's important is getting that thought out. Now, everything that normally drives me crazy is all of that imperfect writing. I usually can't stand it, but I try to let go of that when I'm journaling because I know what my goal is for the journaling. So I know that that's not going to help me get to that goal, to be more self-aware. So I just try not to pay attention to it. It's not about perfection because firstly, it's for your eyes only and it takes the pressure off so you can be open with yourself. And being open with yourself can be a difficult thing. And it's the only way that journaling will work, I believe, because when I'm just vaguely writing, like, oh, I had an okay day. It wasn't a good day, but that's okay. Tomorrow will be better. I don't think that that's realistic all of the time. Sometimes I have to go in deep. I have to go in deep about how something specifically went on with my preteen that I'm feeling defeated about and I don't understand. Or the negative thoughts that were going on in my mind all day that I can't seem to get rid of. And the relationship that I have with God is suffering because I haven't been praying enough. Like, those are good things to write about in your journal. Just be honest with yourself. One of the most important relationships that you have is the relationship that you have with yourself. And so the best way to have a good relationship with yourself is to be honest with yourself at all times. We have to stop trying to appear to be this other woman, even to ourselves. We even do it to ourselves. Like, we have to be honest. Now, after journaling consistently, you will start to notice patterns that will start to reveal themselves to you more, and about who you are and who are you evolving into. It's very interesting. I love going back to see my growth, and journaling is a great way to do that. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God, did I write that? Ooh, I was really going through something. And it can be scary sometimes because it's like, wow, like I was really going through it. And then just seeing how God has brought you from stuff is also what's beneficial about journaling as well. And what I've also learned is that a lot of the questions that I've been asking God are answered through my journaling over time. God is very creative about how he gives you his help and his guidance. Super creative. And he can use that through journaling. Because if you just allow yourself to just let go and just to write exactly how you're feeling in the moment, when you go back, you can heal from a lot of stuff. Like, okay, I need to go talk to someone about this, or I need to try and heal this relationship that I keep writing about. Like I can't just keep writing about it and not doing something about it. I don't like how it's making me feel on the inside. It gets you to be real with yourself if you're real with journaling. Now, if you haven't started journaling or it's been a while since you've journaled, I strongly suggest committing to journaling for at least 1 to 2 months consistently. If it's not every day, once a week, or if you can every other day, or like 2 to 3 days a week, like no pressure, but consistently just being like, monthly, you're writing something and you're talking about, and then when you're feeling heavy and something just doesn't feel right with you, bring out that journal, write about it, girl. Just write it out until you cannot write anymore. You'd be surprised what comes through that pen. And you can even journal electronically. If you're more of a typer, you don't like to write, bring out the computer. Get on Word, on Microsoft Word, and just start typing stuff out. Now, it won't only help you in understanding more about yourself internally, but it will also let you know if journaling is right for you or not. Now, I know it's common for journaling to be, and is known to be a great tool for self-discovery and self-awareness. But I also know that the reality is everything is not for everybody. And I get that. I understand that. But I also want to encourage being open to trying new things that do not normally appeal to you. You never know what will work for you. I mean, you may say things like, oh, I'm not a writer. It won't sound right. Don't worry about that. It's just for you. You're not putting it out there to a publishing company for your book, And some people have made some really good books off of their journal entries. I'm just saying. But just try it. You never know what will come from it. It may pull different things that, in ways that you might want to try on your self-discovery, self-awareness journey. It may help pull out different things that you weren't aware that you're interested in, or different ways to help you. So in other words, just don't knock it until you try it. Give it a shot. Now buy yourself a pretty journal with a nice pen and pencil to match and go for it. Now I love a pretty journal. I have plenty of them. I have too many of them. My husband always tells me, like, how many journals are you going to get between that and books? He's like, okay, like, do you even write in all of these journals? Don't judge me. Leave me and my journals over here looking pretty. And I will write in them when I'm ready. But I love journals. I like to just have them readily available for when I am ready to write, and not saying, oh my God, I need a sheet of paper. Go get yourself a pretty journal and make it work for yourself. Now, as a mom, I understand how difficult it can be to find extra time to do something for yourself. But journaling is effective in no matter how much time you use to do it. There are times where I may simply write words that describe how I feel over the page, around the paper, just to make sure I get it done. And that only takes a few moments to do. And with the words, I've noticed that they sound the same as when I write a full-length 3-page letter to myself. So it reflects how I'm feeling regardless. So it could be like, if I can describe my day yesterday, if I would have wrote words down as far as how I felt yesterday, it would have been angry. I was very angry yesterday about the whole podcasting situation and it being deleted and not working on top of other things. I was overwhelmed. I was stressed, but I was also grateful because I had to remind myself of everything that was going right. And I would have written different words like that. And writing those words could later, you could go back and look and say, okay, well, let me dig a little deeper as far as those words go. What do I need to think about? And can I write about this on a separate journal entry? Just something to think about. And what you can also do is Google different ways to journal. There are a lot of different ways to journal. Sometimes it's not just simply just going forward and free writing as far as how you feel. Sometimes it's hard for people. Sometimes you may want to get a writing prompt, something that says, today my day was, today I feel, things like that. I know if you go to somewhere like, I've gotten good journal prompt journals from Five Below. They're really good. And they have journal prompt journals, or you could just Google different prompts. And that's just one method of journaling. There are other methods, and just Google and see, do some research yourself and just see what method will work for you specifically. Now, therapy is another way to help you to become more self-aware. Now, becoming more self-aware is a journey that you do not have to do alone. A licensed mental health professional, they will help you to learn more about yourself by asking you questions that will force you to go beyond the surface. It will force you to be honest with yourself in therapy. Therapy also helps you to reflect and heal from your past so that you can work towards wholeness and being more self-aware. I can say that, if you go to different sites, like I believe it's Psychology Today, or, oh my gosh, there's so many sites that you can go to. I know for African American females, Therapy for Black Girls is a good site. And not to say that only African Americans can look at that directory, but some good therapists on there. She has a really good, Dr. Joy, she has a really good podcast, Therapy for Black Girls. I would check that out. And there are also other podcasts, therapy, psychology related, that could be helpful for you. And if you're not specifically ready to go to therapy, different articles you can read. There are different people on Instagram and Facebook that are psychologists that have their own pages, and they post different, motivational things and things to help you think a little deeper. I think there's one that I follow, and please excuse me if I get the name right, but I think Note from My Therapist. I could be wrong. I'm sorry, y'all. But if you go on my Instagram page at I.am.Sheilah.a, I am Sheilah A. That's my personal Instagram. One of my last posts is from the therapist that I'm speaking of. So yes, therapy is a good way to become more self-aware. And lastly, my most favorite way to become self-aware is prayer. Help from the ultimate source. Now, I live by prayer, and I can't imagine my life without it. I can't imagine what my life would be without it. When it comes to self-awareness specifically, prayer has been my main problem solver. Sometimes we spend so much time trying to fix and figure out things on our own, which is a waste. It's a waste of time. When all we have to do is ask God for guidance. He's there. He's waiting. He wants to help. And one of my favorite scriptures to meditate on when it comes to prayer and that I rely on for peace is Philippians 4:6. So Philippians chapter 4, verse 6. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving. Present your request to God. Now, how many moms go through anxiousness? Because you got a lot going on. Kids running around. They have their own problems that you have to deal with. You have your own problems that you're trying to figure out. And you get anxious. And sometimes we're not even aware that it's anxiousness. Now, with this scripture is saying, don't be anxious. Go to God. Give him your problems. And the two words that I love in this scripture is anything and everything. You could go to him about anything. It's not too small. It's not too big. It's not too messy. Don't be embarrassed. He knows it anyway. So you might as well go to the one who has the answers and knows he has a problem solved already for you. You just have to continue to go to him and wait on him to reveal what you should do. And when it comes to self-awareness, he will reveal things to you. Like I told you earlier, when I asked God to reveal things to me about myself, he did that. He might do it through conversations with other people. He may do it by making you aware of when you're speaking certain ways in conversations with people or the thoughts within your head. Just allow the Spirit to speak to you. And do not think that you cannot go to him about the smallest or largest things. Go to prayer first before you start to become anxious about the things that are going on in your life. Now, that's episode 5. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful. That concludes it. And I really want to thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to follow me on the Keep Your Cool Mama pages on Facebook and IG, both at Keep Your Cool Mama. I love you guys, and I will see you on the next episode. Bye-bye. Before I let you go, seriously, before I let you go, please subscribe and leave a review with 5 stars if this podcast is inspiring you and helping you to grow. Let's spread the positivity so that we are visible to other mamas out there trying to find her own greatness. And if you need some advice or guidance regarding your own personal growth while tackling motherhood, please email me at keepyourcoolmama@gmail.com. Love you guys.